My grandpa died when he was 89 years old with $1 million net worth, and I don't think he ever even knew it. In this video, I'm going to share with you some details of his net worth and events that surrounded his death, and ultimately 3 lessons that I took away from his death that hopefully you can benefit from as well. In the last year, me and my family were able to visit the gravesite of my grandfather and grandmother. Actually, they're buried side by side. I'll show a picture of them here and blur out the faces for privacy reasons, but it was kind of a unique experience. See, they're buried about 1,000 miles away from where we live, and that's where they lived for most of their lives. So we don't get out there very often, and we had a unique timing that lined up so that we could go and visit their gravesite. And I got to thinking about it recently because just marked the 14-year anniversary of his passing recently this month. Kind of dawned on me that I had learned some lessons from his life and his passing that I wanted to share with you guys. So my grandfather grew up in the 20s and 30s, Depression era. Born in 1922, died in 2012 before he turned 90, so he was 89 years old. And he actually had polio as a child. So he was not eligible to go to war in World War II, in fact. So he stayed home, he got an education, ultimately became an engineer, very smart guy, and was an engineer for the Carrier air conditioning company for, I don't know, 35, 40 years or something like that. And he benefited greatly from a time in America where we had a lot of industry going on in the 1950s and 60s and 70s. And that was the bulk of his working career, was in those decades. And he was able to accrue a fair amount of investments over that time period by simply investing in long-term, very low-risk paper investments for the most part. And he was able to support his family of 4 children and a wife with just one income. Kind of a crazy notion to think of in today's world, right? Some things that I knew about him from very early on in my life when I began to know him was that he was a hard worker. He was very modest. He was kind of one of those people that just put their head down and went to work. And he didn't get too worried about flashy things in life. He wasn't concerned with what people thought of him or perceptions or trendy things. He was that stereotypical kind of old man, you know, that silent generation. But as far as his later years and his ultimate passing, he passed away from heart failure. He had some heart conditions, you know, almost 90 years old. It's bound to happen to most of us. Other than that, was pretty healthy, good sound mind, good sound body. Of course, as you get older, some things deteriorate, and it was harder for him to get around the house that he had in central New York. But always a fun guy to be around, always a positive attitude with the grandkids, and very fond memories of him. Some of his hobbies were woodworking. He loved working with wood. He would make clocks. I think on his passing, I looked around his house and I counted up about 22 different clocks in the house, most of which he had made by hand out of wood. And he had many other clocks that he had given to family members and friends and that sort of thing over the years and decades. He loved photography. He was an avid photographer. He and his wife, my grandmother, would go around back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and they would have a 3 different projector slideshow that they would present at different areas, mostly churches around their region. And they would go and present the slideshow about their experiences, some of which were old family photos and family trips, like camping and outdoors and historical places that they went to visit around the country. And it was just kind of neat to see them enjoy something and get into that hobby so much and not care if it was a financial benefit, because I don't think they charged money for it. If they did, it was very little amount, even back in those days. And yeah, he was just a hardworking guy, salt of the earth. And his one other big passion was genealogy, family history, looking into not only his family name, but also his wife's family name, and then spouses of his children as well. And he accrued 7 or 8 different how genealogy books that he wrote over the years, taking photographs and looking up historical records, newspaper clippings, all sorts of interesting, historical information, compiling it into a book, writing a narrative about different family members and history going all the way back to the early 17 and 1600s in America. And so he was just a remarkable guy. But again, put his head down, didn't get too worried about what was going on in the world or current events or anything like that, and just went to work and did what he wanted to do and did what he had to do. As far as his passing, he was alone at that time. My grandmother had passed away about a decade earlier, and so he had been living alone for about 10 years. Was failing in some health and some physical attributes, like I said, and ultimately we needed to get him into some sort of assisted living or nursing home where he could be watched over. This was after he had some heart issues, a heart attack, and my father and his siblings were having to go over his financial records, and one of them had power of attorney and had access to his accounts. And so they knew that he had a great amount of financial assets to his name, but they also knew that he would not want to spend all of it or a lot of it on himself. So it was a tough decision when it came to, how they were going to care for him in his later years like that. So they basically ultimately had to weigh the cost financially of putting him in a home versus having him go to, a one-on-one type of place or having someone live in care with him. And that was a stressful time for them, trying to care for your elderly parent and trying to figure out what to do in that circumstance. How much money is appropriate enough, and how much would they want to spend, and how long will this take potentially? Will it be a number of months? Will it be several years? It's a tough thing for family members to think about, especially in their moments of grief if there's a serious illness or an imminent passing, like it seemed in my grandfather's case. Now, in regards to his net worth, after he passed, my family was able to execute his will and basically disperse his assets, of course. And I learned that he had over $800,000 in different paper investments accounts. These would be 401ks and retirements and stocks, mutual funds. So he had over $800,000 just in paper assets alone. The home that he had been living in for about 40 years was only worth about $150,000 at that time. Probably should have been worth a little bit more, but of course it needed quite a bit of updates and renovations, since elderly folks normally don't get to those things. So all in all, after all the assets and everything had been sold off and dispersed, it was about $1 million of net worth that he had. And the funny thing is, I don't think he ever knew it. I don't think he really looked at that kind of thing or cared about that kind of thing. It wasn't in his personality to get stuck on those numbers for himself. Now, like I said, he was an engineer. He knew all about numbers. He was great at math and science. He knew everything there was to know. But I don't think he really had a focus on that in his life. That was not where he, wanted his time to be remembered, as far as being financially free or independent or having a high net worth or buying fancy things. None of that seemed, he didn't seem to care about any of that. So I don't know about you guys, but I was a little surprised and shocked when I learned that he had $1 million in net worth assets after he died. Because again, he was such an unassuming guy and the salt of the earth, no fluff, no crazy frills about him. I was just like, wow, that's crazy. And the more I've learned over the years now, since that time, about people of higher net worth, that a lot of them are very similar to my grandfather. They put their head down, they do their job, they invest long-term and slowly in low-risk things, and after a long time, they're worth a lot of money. And some people then get to enjoy that money, and some people want to help others and donate and support causes that are important to them. I'm not saying he wasn't like that at all, but he didn't care about money in that way. And I guess he looked at maybe that money as more of a security blanket than trying to buy fancier things and have, crazier experiences. So the 3 lessons I learned from his passing and his higher net worth is, number 1, invest over the long term, invest in lower risk things, and try to be patient. That's right. Don't get overly excited about rushing the process. If you are trying to build up a higher net worth or a higher nest egg right away, you are probably going to fail, because after 6 months or a year, when you don't have that $500,000 or $1 million or $2 million, whatever you're focused on, you're going to be upset and you're going to give up. So be in it for the long term. That's number 1. Number 2, as far as getting older, either for yourself or if you have older parents right now, talk to them. Discuss their end of life plans with them before they get to a point of not being able to talk about those things in a rational manner, or maybe not having their full capacities about them. It's a lot easier if you and your family talk about these things before the time actually comes to make decisions about them. In some cases, you'll learn more about them and what they want, and that can help guide you and your siblings or your other family members along the correct path when the time comes to have those actual decisions be made. And then the 3rd lesson would be, don't be afraid to enjoy your money. If you are one of those people that are really tight-fisted about finances and you want to always be saving and you're looking for ways to be frugal, that is totally fine. But I would give you some caution in that it's not all about just saving money and accruing that bank account or that net worth as high as it can go. Money is a security blanket in a lot of ways, but if you never get to actually enjoy any of that, then what is the point of it? So you have to have a good balance of saving, investing for the long term, and then also being able to enjoy some of that money and being able to support other people or other causes that are important to you, whether that be charitable donations, whether that be setting up a fund in your name, maybe scholarships to an institution that you are, an alum of or that you are fond of. There's a lot of different ways that you can support things and causes in your area or nationwide or worldwide that you think are important. And those are all good ways to utilize the money that you have saved and invested and grew over the years. So I hope that you guys have learned something from this video. I hope that you've enjoyed hearing a little bit more about my grandfather. I definitely had fun sharing it with you, and hope to talk to you more about him and some other family members who have influenced me in my financial life. So if you did enjoy this video, go ahead and leave a like for me. It helps the channel grow. Subscribe for more updates about financial awareness and wealth building. And as always, we will see you guys next time. Peace.